A little old lady would sell pretzels on the street corner for 50 cents a piece. And every day, a young lawyer would exit his building right at lunchtime, and he would pass the pretzel lady. He would leave 2 quarters. However, he never once took a pretzel. Now, this kind of dance went on for 5 years. And although they never spoke, every day he'd leave 50 cents, and she would nod, and he would walk away without a pretzel. Finally, one day, as the young man passed her stand, he laid down his 2 quarters, and the pretzel woman finally spoke to him. "Sir, I appreciate your business. You are my best customer. But you need to know something. The price of pretzels has gone up 75 cents. So I think we chuckle at the story because we all know someone who's a little bit like the old lady. Or maybe perhaps we're all a little bit like the old lady. We can't help it. Habitually, as human beings, we tend to walk in this world wondering about others. What have they done for me lately? Now, it happens all the time. Think about your favorite restaurant. Hopefully you've been going now to your favorite restaurant. And the waitstaff gets everything right. They fill your water glass, they're on time. But there's that one moment where they forgot to put the dressing on the side, and that's all we remember. Or when our family member, they continuously forget to empty the dishwasher, even though they set the table that day, even though they put away the laundry. All we can do is focus on what didn't happen. Now, neuroscientists call this a particular phenomenon. It's called a negativity bias. We examine the relationships and situations in our lives, and we immediately name what's wrong. It's the same scientific reasoning as to why we leave a job evaluation, and we can only recall the negative points of the conversation. It's also a negativity bias when a bad first impression leaves that lingering imprint. Even if you've seen that person 100 times since that first impression, and they've improved their behavior, they're not even the same person, we still remember that moment. Our minds are prone to pinpointing why we deserve more. And conversely, it's why others look at us and think about those words, what have they done for me lately? And the reason why I bring this up this morning is because I think at the core of our Jewish faith is the antidote, the remedy, to not impulsively remind ourselves what's always going wrong. I believe our tradition holds the recipe for seeing this world first through a lens of blessing and through a lens of faith. Maybe this sounds familiar. Modeh ani lefanecha melechai v'kayam shehechazarta bi nishmati bechemla. Can you finish it? Rabbi emunatecha. Thank you. Thank you, living and enduring God. Thank you, living and enduring King. For you have graciously returned my soul to me. Great is your faithfulness. Modeh ani. It's just one prayer. Actually, it's one sentence. It's a sentence we recite every single morning before we even open our eyes. You know, it's a prayer that we're not supposed to actually say here in shul, here in synagogue. The Kitzur Shulchan Aruch is a 19th century abridged version of Jewish law. I love it because it's known as the Handbook for Daily Life. And in this handbook is a beautiful depiction of what we should be thinking about as we recite this prayer. The halakha tells us, Modeh ani is said when we are lying down in bed. It's right in those in-between moments, the end of slumber and the beginning of becoming awake. And as we exhale that first breath, we are supposed to pause. And here's the halakha. This is amazing. This is where Jewish law actually gives us an ethical underpinning. The Kitzur Shulchan Aruch says, every morning when you say Moda Ani, you realize that a person becomes a new creation. As Jonathan Sacks puts it, despite its brevity, this sentence, Moda Ani, articulates a transformative act of faith. The recognition every single day that our lives are a gift from God. Think about that. Every morning we get a chance to start over. We get the opportunity to repair relationships. We get to fall down and make mistakes and try again. And it's our Jewish tradition that sees waking up. Who thought this morning when you woke up, this is a miraculous act? And this deserves the deepest of thanks before anything else, any complaint or negativity takes over my mind. I was reading a beautiful excerpt by Jewish educator Sarah Crisp. And she says, if you think about those words, Modeh Ani, it's actually a grammatical error. In modern Hebrew, we would usually say, Ani modeh, I thank you. But she points out that that grammatical error is purposeful. Because what are we doing in switching the words? Every single morning, the very first word that comes out of our mouths, or should come out of our mouths, is thanks. Not I, but thanks. And we all know, you know as well as I do, the rest of the day, we will certainly focus on I. We'll focus on our personal needs, our wants, our to-do list, whatever it may be. But when we begin our morning with the word thanks, thank you, dear God, then we allow blessing and prayer to reframe our focus from wondering, what do I deserve today? To praying, to whom do I give thanks for getting the opportunity to live in this sacred world? Now, it takes almost 40 years of wandering through the desert for the Israelites to get it right. And for most of the time, they get it very wrong. I mean, over and over again, each week we witness the complaints of Bnei Israel. They are liberated from Egypt, from slavery, and all we hear is complaining. It's not a small thing to leave Pharaoh. And then we hear them complaining about the manna falling from the heavens. Remember, manna tastes like anything their hearts desire, but we don't hear one word of thanks, only complaining. But if you have time to look back at the verses of this Torah portion of Hukat, I urge you to do so. Because now, 40 years later, somehow the Israelites get it right. They start to sing a song, and we've seen songs in our Torah before. Moses sings a song, Miriam sings a song, but here the Israelites on their own, according to the Midrash, this is what they say. Master of the universe, dear God, you have performed miracles for us, and so now, finally now we will sing. You delivered us, and that's why we will sing this song all the days of our lives. Not just one day, all the days of our lives. It took 40 years for our ancestors to finally acknowledge the miracles that took place in their lives, but I want to tell all of us here this morning, it need not take that long for all of us. I chose this message today because of the fact that California is officially reopening. And we know it's so easy to fall back into our habits and to fall back into our routines and forgetting the sacrifices made this year, from first responders to family members unable to see each other for months, for over a year at a time, to our city workers living in fear in order to keep our streets clean and our communities safe. So often I would be privy to hear congregants say to me, Rabbi, this year has truly been awful, but I have to say to you, it's actually been a year when I've been able to recognize my blessings the most. It's been a year in which I've been able to realize my priorities and put that before me before anything else. And so I ask all of us, as this state, as this city reopens, when we see each other, let's not allow angst, and let's not allow self-doubt to override the ability to remember what is so very important in our lives. Emerson teaches, cultivate the habit of being grateful for every good thing that comes to you, and to give thanks continuously. And because all things have contributed to your advancement, you should include all things in your gratitude. Developing a habit of saying the good, choosing to name what's right, and we know that's hard. It's hard to name what's right. That's the practice that rewires the brain, and that's the practice that widens the heart. I'm not going to pretend that our rabbis were neuroscientists. They weren't. But they certainly understood how to frame one's consciousness. We can train our minds to align with what I believe our hearts already know, that this is a world filled with wonder and awe. We are the lucky inheritors of a tradition that asks us to refocus past that negative bias, that makes us critical of ourselves and critical of others, exactly what Jordan spoke about this morning. And instead, have that faith that we hold the ability to grasp life, to name our joys, and see each day as a waking opportunity to be created once again. Modeh ani lefanecha. It was the song of our ancestors, but we have to remember, for them, it was a song of regret. Understanding that their thanks and gratitude to God came 40 years too late. But for all of us, the song can be a daily practice, a necessary reminder that for this beautiful moment, for this wondrous life, for the gift of waking up, and for the gift of each other, right now, all we can think about is giving thanks. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.